the day started off with me going on Megyn Kelly, and I took a bit of a victory lap for my prediction in the the Diddy prosecution, which came to fruition to a T. I'm going to take a victory lap because my prediction, my assessment now, for the last little while, that Bongino looked like he was being held at metaphorical gunpoint, that Patel did not look like he believed in what he was saying, that it looked like the two of them were very frustrated, but at the end of the day, the two of them are employees of the state who answer to and abide by the orders of the DOJ. Who has final authority over the FBI? You'll know where this answer is going, people. It's AI overview, but I know the answer. The Federal Bureau of Investigation operates under a complex system of oversight with various individuals and entities holding authority over different aspects of its operations. The only reason I'm using AI for this is because I already know the answer. Oh yeah, what does it say right there? Department of Justice, right over the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I say the criticism is understandable and I would even dare say warranted, but it needs to be fair. The Federal Bureau of Investigation operates under a complex system, yada, yada. Attorney General, as an agency within the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI is responsible to the Attorney General. Who's the Attorney General, people? Pamela Bondi. I mispronounced that on purpose. Pamela Bondi. The Attorney General is the head of the Department of Justice and the chief law enforcement officer of the federal government, who reports directly to the president. The FBI reports its findings to the U.S. attorneys across the country who fall under the Attorney General purview. Director of the FBI, it has a director, that's Bongino. President of the United States appoints FBI director. We all know the rest of this. DNI, that's Tulsi Gabbard, another person who arguably, but not arguably, has been sidelined by the current administration or certain actors within. So from the beginning of sorts, I said, look, that Bartiromo interview, I've had colonoscopies where I looked calmer and more at ease than Bongino and Patel during that interview. Kash Patel on Rogan, making it kind of clear who the FBI responds to. So while a lot of people might have been placing the emphasis squarely on Bongino and Patel for action, inaction, fault, and whatever, from the beginning, and my trail is there, I don't think they call the shots. Who does call the shots? And it's been an active question. In the Butler, Pennsylvania failed assassination murder that occurred there, who calls the shots for charges there? I think it's the DOJ. Secret Service came out and sanctioned some of their employees. We're going to get to that as well, because there's conspiracy there that I didn't get to yesterday, at least from an update from Susan Crabtree. But it's the DOJ that basically issues the orders. Pam Bondi has been pretty clear about there being thousands of videos, yada, yada, yada. It's on her desk. We might have to add that to the merch. Like when someone has something to get done that everybody's waiting to get done that they, in their heart of hearts, know they're never going to do, it's on my desk, people. The check is in the mail. That whole memo debacle from earlier this week, well, the proverbial shit hit the fan today with a breaking scoop from Laura Loomer. Now, Laura got the credit that she deserves for this from Axios, who subsequently ran with the story. And I will always remember the stories where I get burnt, and that's why I always double check and triple check. This one looks like it's accurate. This one looks like it's the actual scoop, and we're going to break it down right now. Laura Loomer put out this tweet earlier today, and it says, "Scoop, FBI Director Kash and Dan Bongino are livid with Attorney General Pam Bondi over her DOJ memo and the lack of transparency from her office regarding the Epstein files." One thing I would add to this, we still don't know that it's even her memo, but don't worry, Todd Blanche came out earlier today after this tweet and after the Axios article to clarify. We'll get there. Source tells me Dan Bongino is taking the day off today from his job as deputy director of the FBI, and there's now speculation on whether or not he will return to his job at the FBI over his disgust with Blondy's lack of transparency and handling of the Epstein files. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to so we can appreciate this is reporting. Now we've gone into editorializing, which is fine, by the way, because I tend to agree with Loomer here. Pam Bondi has brought total embarrassment to President Trump, J.D. Vance, Dan Bongino, and Kash Patel. She has also lied to the American people. I'm told Kash and Bongino are furious with Bondi and the blowback she has caused them with her lack of transparency. Kash and Dan should call for Blondy's public resignation today to save themselves and to push for a full transparency into the Epstein files. This is an issue the American people care deeply about. Someone needs to be fired over this. Giving Blondie courtesy to resign is more than she deserves. Trump should just fire her. That was Laura's tweet. And I basically said, look, if Laura's scoop is accurate, I'm going to have another prediction that I'll put up on the wall with my Diddy prediction. A lot of people were shitting on Bongino and Patel, accusing Patel of being involved with Israeli intelligence covering up the Epstein file because apparently Patel is dating a woman who has a connection to Maria Streit from PragerU. And I'm like, holy shit, people. Like, I will entertain even the most outlandish of conspiracy theories, but for someone to think that Kash Patel is compromised because he's dating a woman who has a connection to PragerU and Maria Streit, by the way, both institutions that I have never had the slightest bit of issue with. I've actually been on Marissa Streit's channel a couple of times. I've been invited for the book reading with Michael Knowles. PragerU has a unapologetic pro-Israel stance. That's the connection that you're going to hang this entire conspiracy on. Patel is going to ruin his life, ruin his career, running cover because he's dating a girl that is friends with Maria Streit and affiliated with PragerU. If you want to go that angle, the better angle is probably just that Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, who picks the staff, who gives the access, who controls his administration to some extent, apparently assisted Netanyahu with his election campaign in 2020. That would be a more plausible, more linear, more direct connection. But people were shitting on Patel. They were shitting on Bongino. And the question was always, do they even have the authority to make these decisions, prosecutorial decisions? Do they have the authority to decide to open up or reopen investigations? I don't think so. I didn't think so. Not entirely clear, so you can't blame everybody. But the bottom line is, I've been saying it for a while now, Bongino is now an employee of the state. He's not an independent analyst commentator. Patel is now an employee of the state. He's no longer an independent analyst commentator author. And so when you have both of them not subscribing to, but, saying things like, based on the file, as we have it, inherited from a criminal FBI, it looks like Epstein killed himself, and here's the 10 hours of footage. Okay, you can choose to call them liars, or you can choose to call them employees, or you can choose to call them cowards, because if they don't believe what they're saying, then they should resign and yada, yada. Well, we might be at that point right now. The Axios article, by the way, just so we can highlight this. Someone leaked an unsigned, undated memo to Axios. I don't consider myself to be a Trump sycophant, nor am I a groupie, nor am I anyone who's going to twist himself into knots to explain away the unexplainable. That memo, I said, was absolutely atrocious. How is it unsigned? How is it undated? How does it contradict not just what Dan Bongino and Patel have said for the last few years? They didn't sign it. It contradicted what Pam Bondi said a month ago, 5 months ago. She didn't sign it. Undated, unassigned. And like the letterhead was it looked like someone had just recently edited together, leaked to Axios, and then uploaded to the DOJ website the next day, as best I could tell. That's an effing debacle. The people who I would call the sycophants, I won't name any names, but there's some people who they almost appear to be like, I'm not talking about big names. People were accusing me of having relied on a fake document. Like, Viva, you idiot, you traitor, that's a fake document. It's like, first of all, it's on the DOJ website. Second of all, if it were a fake document, why hasn't the FBI repudiated it? Third of all, a week late and a buck short, Todd Blanche comes out and says, I worked closely with FBI Director Kash and FBI Director Bongino on the joint FBI and DOJ memo regarding the Epstein files. All of us signed off on the contents of the memo and the conclusions stated in the memo. The suggestion by anyone that there was any daylight between the FBI and the DOJ leadership on this memo's composition and release is patently false. This is what Todd Blanche said today. This is after 5 days, 6 days that this memo has been released, where I was taking shit on Monday by allegedly having relied on a fake document. They're now, to some extent, taking ownership of it. First of all, and again, I'm not shitting on Todd Blanche, period. This is an administration that needs to succeed. And that's what the purpose of the criticism is. The way this has been rolled out, this debacle could very well leave a lingering stain on this administration's Trump's second term, the midterms coming up, and 2028. And I said to Todd Blanche, call me a sycophant because I'm being polite. And someone's like, why are you being polite? They're covering up. I'm being polite because they need to fix this. And I'm not being an ass because I'm not trying to destroy Trump's term at all. On the contrary. And I say this with the utmost of respect, without any snark or sass. The entire confusion stems from the fact that literally nobody signed off on the undated and unsigned memo. Here he says, we all signed off on it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Nobody signed off on it. How could Pam Bondi sign off on that when it contradicts her memo from February? Nobody signed off on it, nor did anyone take responsibility for it. It was leaked to Axios and quietly uploaded to the DOJ website the next day. This is specifically the origin of the confusion and controversy. Other than Caroline Levitt's brief comment on the memo, no one has even assumed authorship of it or presented it officially, to such a bizarre point that people were hypothesizing that the memo was fake. Perhaps a press conference to discuss the memo and its findings, and not a tweet 1 week later after the controversy has gone viral. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and right now we are in the obesity of a cure that is needed. A press conference. By the way, when Todd Blanche is saying we all agree eye to eye to see this, then you all sign off on it. And then the argument, well, we all agree eye to eye on it. The director of the FBI has got a powerful voice, but he doesn't have signing authority for certain things. The deputy director, even less so. What would it look like if they said, we're not okay with this memo, don't put our names on it? What would it look like? What would happen if what Todd Blanche was saying was actually not entirely accurate? What would happen is you might have people saying, I got to get out of this. You're destroying not just our reputations as analysts and everything we've built our names up for. You're compromising this administration and the potential success of this administration. I didn't get a response from Todd Blanche, but I would do the press conference. I'll make you a list of questions that I had. I think I got about the same questions that I tweeted out at the FBI a little while ago. Even if Epstein killed himself without, check-ins, taken off suicide watch, yada, 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 maybe there's good answers for it. No client list. Who are the unindicted co-conspirators? Trafficking, the videos of CSAM. Was that Epstein produced or was that Epstein uploaded? If it was Epstein uploaded, who produced it? Is there an investigation into the provenance of that CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material? And so now we're back to square one a week later. Looks like Laura Loomer's scoop is accurate, and it looks like the damage control is not really controlling the damage. This is Axios. And by the way, I made sure that Axios in their article gave credit to Laura Loomer because sometimes some journalists don't. Scoop, Bongino's clash with AG Bondi over handling of the Epstein files. Listen to this. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino took a day off from work Friday after clashing at the White House with Attorney General Pam Bondi over their handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. 4 sources familiar with the conflict told Axios. And I always wonder, what would Laura Loomer's source be? If there was active fighting, like borderline public within the administration, staffers would have seen it. Worth checking schedules to see if this was an unplanned day off or if this was a planned day off work, but set that aside. Why it matters? Todd Blanche, Axios might be the shite of shite propaganda, but you might still be able to read it and appreciate why it matters. Why it matters? Not because the Trump bases are a bunch of conspiracy theorists, because there is a conspiracy here, and the way this has been dealt with has done nothing but exacerbate whatever conspiracy theories people had, legitimate and far-fetched. Dispute erupted Wednesday amid the fallout of the administration's walking back its claims about Epstein by determining the convicted sex offender didn't have a celebrity client list. They put it in quotes. He wasn't murdered in his cell in 2019. Bongino didn't come to work Friday, leading to some insiders to believe he had quit. But administration officials say he's still on the job, even as the internal tension over the Epstein case continues. A source close to Bongino said he ain't coming back. Zoom in. At the center of the argument, surveillance video. Forget the surveillance video. Forget the missing minute. I'm not saying this to cover it up. We're not dealing with freaking ninja murder. Like the 1 minute that was missing, someone sneaks in and murders Epstein. From my understanding, there's some question as to whether or not it's even the right cell. From my understanding, there may have even been, if you watch the footage, you might be able to see people periodically or guards periodically checking in on, what's his face? Epstein. Forget the video. That video is damning one way or the other. If it's doctored, it's damning. If it's not doctored, it's damning. How he ended up alone for sufficient periods of time, taken off suicide watch with extra bed linens that allowed him to kill himself. That's a conspiracy. I'd have my questions about that, Mr. Blanche. Madam Bondi. The missing minute, forget it. Bongino, who had pushed Epstein conspiracy theories as a MAGA-friendly podcast before becoming appointed to the FBI, had found the video and touted it publicly and privately as proof that Epstein hadn't been murdered. Moot. Irrelevant. If he killed himself, that's a conspiracy as well. Conclusions shared by FBI Director Kash Patel, another conspiracy theorist turned insider, angered many in Trump's base. Criticism then increased after Axios first reported the release of the video and a related memo. After the video's missing minute was discovered, Bongino was blamed internally for the oversight, according to 3 sources. Can you imagine this? You know what I look at when I see this? Like, someone didn't think this was going to be a big problem. It became a big problem, despite warnings, and now everyone's trying to save face and throw another person under the bus. The missing minute, I mean, yeah, it's gonna raise some eyebrows I would argue, I'll accept the explanation. I'll still stick to mine. How did he get a loan with extra linens for such a long period of time? Set that aside. Okay. Two sources familiar with Bongino's position say he was increasingly displeased with Bondi's handling of the Epstein file because she had publicly overpromised and underdelivered disclosures about an Epstein, quote, client list, end quote, that apparently never existed. The intrigue. MAGA influencer Laura Loomer, a Bondi critic, first reported Friday on X that Bongino left work and that he and Patel were furious with the way Bondi handled the case. Would you not be furious with Bondi if they say, A, you can't release this memo? Okay, if the conclusion is that he killed himself, fine, we can explain that. That there was no blackmail. There's documented blackmail of Epstein blackmailing Bill Gates with that 20-year-old allegedly that he was having an affair with. There's documented blackmail. If I'm in there and I'm Patel or Bongino, I'm A, frustrated. I'm a peacock that wants to fly. They fly, by the way, people. And I'm livid with the fact that they're not listening to me and I don't have the final say. And there are some people who were born to be bosses and others that were born to be employees. And there's no judgment to that. Like my father always said growing up, you got your finders, minders, and grinders. That's what it was. I think there's only three. The finders go out and find the business. The minders, whatever. And then the grinders are the ones who work daily. Not everybody is born to be a boss and not everybody is going to survive as an employee. Bongino's not going to, in my view, was not born to be an employee, was not born to be a subordinate. Yes, he'll follow mission orders. I know that, but you get to a point in your life where you're no longer, you've outgrown employee status. Patel as well. Can you imagine how livid they would be knowing full well where this would go and how it would go? Some Trump advisors have criticized Bondi, but Trump loves Pam and thinks she's great, a senior White House official say. Those witnessing the Wednesday clash between Bondi and Bongino in the White House were Patel, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and Deputy Chief of Staff Taylor Budowich. My question is, who does Pam Bondi answer to, take directions from? And that's where I would go with this. But I put out the tweet, is she doing a good job? Is it incompetence? Is it malice? Is it something else? And it was 50-50 between incompetence and malice, with 8-10% saying she's doing a fine job. Those must be Democrats. Pam said her piece. Dan said his piece. It didn't end on friendly terms, said one person briefed on the heated discussion. Bongino left angry. The fact is, Dan was for releasing the information with the video and had no problem until he got heat online, a senior administration official told Axios. Bongino found the video with the missing minute. He vouched for it after a thorough review, he said, and he thought this would end the matter. When that didn't work, he lost his mind and ran out of the DC. Said a pro-Bongino source. This is like high school, man. Dan is not the bad guy here. He shouldn't take the fall. The big picture, the blow-up involving Trump senior law enforcement officials showed just how much the administration has been rocked by its handling of the Epstein case. You might want to look at that, Todd. Bongino Patel each have complained to others, that they were being unfairly blamed for the Epstein flap and hung out to dry. Zoom out. Bongino, a former Secret Service agent, joined the administration after gaining prominence as a conservative podcaster with regular appearances on Fox News. What they're saying. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche weighed in Friday morning saying he worked closely with Patel and Bongino on the joint FBI and DOJ memo regarding the Epstein files. All of us signed off on the contents of the memo. We read that. You imagine what that? Yeah, we all talked about it. And apparently Bongino and Patel, or at least Bongino, said, don't issue that memo. It's going to mess things up. And now you got Todd Blanche saying, no, we all agreed on it. We all agreed on it. Shut your mouth, Bongino. Everyone's good with it. And everyone in MAGA, and I dare say even some in Biden camp, are like, nobody believes the findings of that memo, at least not based on the evidence that has not been provided to date. So that's where it's at today. And by the rumorings, Bongino is contemplating, he either left and is contemplating not coming back, and there may be the ultimatum that Bongino goes or Bondi goes. Whether or not this would have happened with Matt Gaetz, methinks it wouldn't have. And if there's anyone to blame in this, who has the decision-making power, it's Bondi, who came out on Fox News and said, in response to the question, the DOJ is thinking of releasing the list of Epstein clients. Is that really going to happen? It's on my desk. Bondi, the one who wrote the memo to Patel saying, what the F is the SDNY FBI field office doing, not responding to requests from you and me, seemingly moving boxes, potentially destroying evidence. We're going to get the list of Epstein's clients. That was Bondi. Nobody else. And then you come up with a memo, unsigned, undated, leaked to Axios. My goodness, if you were trying to compromise this administration, what would you be doing differently? That's where it's at today. We'll see who comes back to work on Monday, and we'll see if Bondi gets the axe. There is, I won't say a movement online, but there is a call to axed the Bondi, to fire Bondi. And I'm like, I'm watching an interview from Susie Wiles. I'm like, when the hell was the last time Susie Wiles gave an interview? And you go into the replies on this. Let me see if this is, here we go. We'll go into the replies in a second. Let me just play the video for you, which I also thought was another just terrible, at least a terrible clip. Let's hear what Susie Wiles has to say here.
I was sitting in a cabinet meeting one day, and they do tend to go on a while. And so I was jotting down in my notebook how I saw the cabinet. And these numbers are wrong, but order of magnitude correct. 5 published authors, 7 billionaires, 11 lawyers, a couple of minorities, a Democrat or two. It is an amazing group of people that he put together. And what Bobby Kennedy's done.
I agree with what Bobby Kennedy has done. Am I the only one who cringed when she said a couple of minorities? Like, she's talking about authors, accomplishments of success, billionaires, accomplishments of success, a couple of minorities, like the success is being a minority. And who's she talking? If I'm the minority in that room that she's talking about, I'm feeling really, really dirty and really, really demeaned and degraded. Like, we got a bunch of lawyers, billionaires, a short, stocky Jew who's got nice hair. It's like, holy crap, I never knew that's how you saw it. Okay, anyways, moving past it.
President took some criticism, not so much for Bobby, but what has he run before? And he has recruited a team that's unparalleled. He's doing great. Brooke Rollins is doing great. Linda McMahon has an impossible job that she's done with great grace.
Yes. And achieved a lot, actually.
Marco Rubio was born for this.
Yes.
And has just been quickly assimilated over here in his NSC position. It really, there's not one who I would say is not a complete success in what they're doing in their area. I was sitting.
So set aside the cringe of the 2 minorities. What do you think the replies were to that? There's not one that I would say is doing bad. Let me go see here. Did anyone else know? This is what's amazing. Joe Rogan says post and ghost and don't read the chat. Don't read the comments. Reading the comments is sometimes very useful. Read this here. My trust for this woman and a lot of people in this admin, and now even Trump after the other day, is damn near gone. Trump has either watered down, completely ignored, or now lied about a lot of the promises he made to MAGA. It's a sad wish. I didn't feel this way, but after that cabinet meeting and Bondi, I do. Did anyone else know that Susie Wiles worked on Benjamin Netanyahu campaign? Now it's all starting to make sense. She has to go. For all the replies naming Bondi, she is following orders from the top. Trump owns the Epstein debacle. And there were a lot of calls for Bondi to resign. And it is true, the buck stops with the president. But the information needs to get to the president. And if it needs to get to the president either through a responsible team or the president listening. And we know that this president does listen, but we also know that there are gatekeepers to this president. And you can not bypass the gatekeepers, but you hope that there are people within the administration that are bypassing the gatekeepers to get the info to Trump. And I think Trump needs to understand that the Epstein debacle has been atrocious. It's not going away. And at this point, whether it's grotesque incompetence or malice on the part of Bondi, it looks like it might be an ultimatum between, I don't know, Cash and or Bongino or Blondie. One thing is for certain, at the very least, it's grotesque incompetence because Bondi's DOJ continuing to pursue certain cases to the Supreme Court, not withdrawing certain cases, pursuing Biden-era prosecutions, Bitcoin Jesus, Roger Ver, Douglas Mackey, Ricky Vaughn. I mean, this is Pam Bondi pursuing these cases and these prosecutions, which were Biden-era political persecutions. At the very least, incompetent. So all that to say, you can accuse me of being partial to Rumble. I am, because they're good. You can accuse me of being biased to Bongino. I am, because I like him. But I can only imagine how frustrating it would be if I'm right and Bongino has actually been in a position where he can't talk his mind anymore, where he's overrun and, what's the word I'm looking for, overrided by Bondi and other powerful forces who are not listening to what they're saying, and he has to go along with it because he's an employee of the state. And by resigning, it could compromise Trump's presidency, but by pursuing this devastatingly destructive path, it could also compromise Trump's presidency. That is what you call getting stuck between a rock and a hard place.